Do you ever get invited to a family gathering just so they can prove you're a failure? Your own family, the people who are supposed to love you most. 8 years of silence, not a single text, not one call. Then, out of the blue, they invited me. Grandma's birthday, at the most exclusive high-end restaurant in the city. It wasn't about love, it was a power move. A chance to flaunt their status and crush me one last time. They were decked out in designer everything, talking MBAs and titles. I walked in wearing my silk dress, Italian shoes, and grandma's pearls. But their eyes said everything. She smells like a kitchen. How can she even afford to be here? They mocked me for the smell of food, for being a mere cook. But they had no idea. They had no idea that the very place they were sitting, judging me, was my restaurant. They didn't know I went from $2,000 and sleeping on a greasy kitchen floor to building the most impossible to get a reservation place in town. They didn't know I almost lost everything 6 months ago. I nearly went bankrupt. And the biggest shocker? That was only half the truth. There was another half, one I'd hidden for 8 years. A secret involving the only person who never gave up on me. My grandmother. She did something our family would never forgive. If they found out. Tonight, in front of all of them, I'm spilling everything. Stick around till the end. See the journey from ground zero to the moment I made them choke on their arrogance and get the mind-blowing twist about my grandma. If you've ever felt underestimated, please hit subscribe, because this story is yours too. I'm Eliza, 32 years old. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my champagne silk dress, getting ready to walk into a reunion where, for 8 years, no one even bothered to say my name. It was Grandma's 79th birthday. She was the only one who never condemned me for ditching the family business. Tonight, my family was meeting at Palais d'Étoile. It's French court style, the most high-end, exclusive spot in the whole city. They picked it to show off their status. They had no idea I designed every single light fixture in that place. They always laughed at my cooking passion, called it menial labor, unworthy of a hawthorn. I never forgot that. My stomach twisted as I smoothed the folds of my dress. Some meetings are tougher than getting a table at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, especially when you walk in as a complete outsider, among your own blood. If you've ever had to prove yourself to the people who should have supported you, you get it. Inside the Gothic mansion of the Hawthorns, every kid was a jewel that had to shine. My siblings, they shone with Ivy League degrees and massive careers. Me, I only wanted to shine with the scent coming from a kitchen. That was an unforgivable failure in their eyes. Tonight, inside the culinary fortress I built, I was going to show them the real price of calling my passion a failure. Hawthorn children are born to lead, Mom would declare at garden parties. Dad would just nod, sipping his scotch. Jane's at NYU stern, and Henry's destined to be a huge urban architect. When guests turned to me, the middle child, Mom's smile would freeze for just a second. Eliza, she's creative. She'll find her way. That was her code for, you are a disappointment. While Jane dominated finance conferences and Henry won design awards, I was sneaking off to the kitchen with Anna, our housekeeper from Spain. Anna saw what my parents ignored. You have the heart of a chef, she told me, chopping garlic. The sharp, warm scent filled that small space. The way you season, the way you smell, you understand food with your soul. When I was 12, I created my first soup, inspired by the cookbook Grandma gave me. That soup eventually inspired my signature venison dish. At 15, I hosted secret 5-course dinners for my friends whenever my parents were away. That kitchen became my own palace. But when I mentioned culinary school senior year, Dad lost it. Cooking is for hired help, he roared. Hawthorns hire chefs, we don't become them. To please them, I applied only to business schools. Ended up at Cornell, Dad's alma mater. Even there, I found ways to feed the passion. I took food science classes, pretended they were business support. I ran a secret pop-up dinner club from my dorm, cooked 5-course meals for paying students. That money went straight to weekend cooking workshops. I started dreaming about Palais d'Étoile, that double life dragged on through grad school. I was 2 months shy of finishing my construction management MBA, the degree that was suffocating me, when I walked out. I moved to Portland for culinary school. My family called it betrayal. They cut me off entirely. Then Chef Julien Moreau, a French culinary legend, visited campus. He tasted my venison dish, a dish that made people cry. He grabbed my hand. His voice was deep. "Who taught you this?" I looked him in the eye. "I taught myself." I confessed everything. Books, videos, an endless trial and error. Julien Moreau handed me his card. "You're wasting your talent here. Get to my kitchen in Boston. I'll make you excellent." That night changed everything. 2 weeks later, I stood in the spotless living room of my parents' Gothic mansion. I explained why I was quitting my construction management MBA to go to culinary school in Portland. The silence after my announcement was suffocating. "This is completely unacceptable," my father finally said, his voice dangerously low. "Except for respecting what I actually want," I shot back. My mother's face was stone. "If you chase this hobby, don't expect family support, financial or otherwise." Jane, fresh off her first year at NYU Stern, gave me a thin, knowing smile. "Always the rebel. Let's see how long you last on a dishwasher's salary." Henry, already working at a prestigious architecture firm, just looked down, embarrassed for me. I walked out that night. All I had was $2,000 in savings and a small suitcase. The next 8 years were tougher than anything I'd ever faced. I was pulling 18-hour shifts, living in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates, borrowing money just to afford culinary school in Portland. In the beginning, I slept on a friend's sofa. My hands were covered in burns from clumsy kitchen mistakes. I learned sauces from an immigrant Italian chef. He'd scream at me for adding too much wine, but patiently showed me how to balance flavor. Some nights, I questioned if I'd made the worst mistake, but the scent of truffle and the sizzle of the pan always pulled me back. Under Julien Moreau's wing, I thrived. The kitchen's harsh discipline, the creativity, it fed something business school could never touch. The first dish I truly created, a pan-seared cod, made Julien nod. That moment was worth more than any diploma. Then the game-changing opportunity hit. An investor tasted my venison dish at one of Julien's events. He offered a partnership. 3 years ago, Palais d'Étoile opened. I was the executive chef and co-owner. After the venison and truffle dish got a mention in the Michelin Guide, I used every cent of profit to buy out the shares. I became the sole owner. I had to smile, realizing I was using my business knowledge after all, just not the way my parents expected. Palais d'Étoile quickly became the hardest table to book in the city. Last month, Culinary Magazine named us to their Future of American Cuisine list. Through all of this, I kept my distance from the family. Awkward calls with mom, holiday cards, but nothing deep. They knew I was involved with food, but nothing about my actual success. I kept the secret on purpose. I wanted recognition for what I achieved, not just to finally win their approval. So when the invitation to Grandma's birthday arrived at my apartment, I was surprised. I was even more shocked when the venue was Palais d'Étoile, my restaurant. Of course, they couldn't know it was mine. They probably just chose it for the luxury and reputation. Perfect for showing off. After days of agonizing, I decided to go. Not for validation, but to close a chapter. 8 years away gave me perspective. I was secure enough in my success to face them without crumbling under their judgment. The real surprise came when Henry called. He hadn't called in 8 years. His voice was too eager. "Did you get the invite? Family booked the whole main room for Grandma's 79th at Palais d'Étoile. It's a dress rehearsal for the huge 80th bash next year. You have to come." I nodded into the phone, my heart clenching. Palais d'Étoile would be the stage for our reunion, and no one knew I owned the theater. "Sounds great. It's a special occasion. I'll definitely be there," I replied. They suddenly remembered me, probably because Grandma insisted. But I knew they still saw me as background noise to their success. "It's going to be a memorable party," I whispered to myself. But I didn't anticipate the gut punch of watching them dine at Palais d'Étoile, tearing apart the very food I poured my soul into. That was waiting for me. I chose my outfit carefully. The pale champagne silk dress, hair neatly pinned up, Italian suede shoes. I wore Grandma's pearls, simple elegance. The kind of subtle class my status-obsessed family would probably mistake for trying too hard on a tight budget. That evening, sitting in the car before walking in, a wave of fear hit me. 8 years building this empire, but when I looked in the mirror, I still saw that shaky girl from before, the inadequate middle child. My heart pounded so hard I heard it in my ears like the old sizzle of a greasy pan. My hand hovered over the door handle. I could just leave. Drive back to Portland. Back to the kitchen. Back to where I knew who I was. Then I remembered Grandma, her old cookbook, the real reason I was here. I took a deep breath and stepped out. The limited edition bergamot perfume was subtle, but I knew they'd sneer, calling it the smell of cheap grease. When I pushed open the heavy glass doors of Palais d'Étoile, walking in as the failure they still imagined, the familiar scents washed over me. Black truffle, deep red wine reduction, and the hint of fresh thyme I have delivered twice a day. Normally, those smells ground me. They remind me of everything I built. Tonight, they just amplified the anxiety. Lucas, my most senior waiter, saw me instantly. His eyes widened just for a fraction of a second. He was clearly shocked to see me as a guest. I rarely used the guest entrance at Palais d'Étoile. I gave Lucas, my senior waiter, a quick shake of the head. My mouth signaled, "Wait." He gave a subtle nod and went back to work. I saw them immediately. They looked like a perfectly staged power portrait at the main table. Mom was in Dior. Dad was meticulously examining the wine list with almost aggressive concentration. Jane, in brand new Valentino, sat next to a strange man. Must be Thomas, hair perfectly slicked, his watch flashing with every move. Uncle, the coastal development director, in his Armani, was already droning on about his new project. Clara, the Columbia grad cousin, was stunning in Chanel, whispering something to Grandma. Henry and his wife Emma completed the picture. Dressed like they'd just stepped out of a critical board meeting, Sophie, my receptionist, approached me with a professional warm smile. "Good evening, miss." She stopped just in time. "Your table is ready. Shall I lead you?" "Thanks, Sophie," I murmured. As I approached, the relative's eyes scanned me like a barcode, pricing the dress, the shoe brand, my class. Mom noticed me first. Her eyes raked me from head to toe, that familiar look from childhood, always evaluating, always finding me wanting. "Eliza," she stood up and air-kissed my cheeks. "You finally made it. We were getting worried." "I'm right on time, Mom," I replied, glancing at my watch. 7:30 p.m. exactly. Dad stood up, giving me a stiff hug that ended with an awkward pat on the back. "You look healthy," he commented. "Hawthorne code for you haven't maintained the thin physique prized by our elite circle." Jane didn't even bother to rise. She just presented a cheek for a quick peck. "This is Thomas," she introduced him. The man stood up, shaking my hand. "Harvard undergrad, Wharton MBA," he introduced himself. He was a VP at JP Morgan. "No, nice to meet you." "No, I've heard about you. Just credentials and status, the Hawthorne love language." Henry greeted me more genuinely, but Emma's smile was strained. I learned later she was tasked with finding a luxurious restaurant for Grandma's birthday and was anxious if Palais d'Étoile met the family's standards. "Come on," Mom said, as I settled into the last chair. "We already ordered white wine. Hope you don't mind." I noted they chose the second most expensive bottle on the list, showy but not reckless. Typical. Around us, Palais d'Étoile glowed like a Baroque palace. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, carved wood paneling was gilded, the seats were royal blue velvet, and harp music drifted in the background. This space was my passion project, from the soft lighting that flattered the food to the perfect distance between tables. Every detail was designed to make guests linger. I caught the subtle reactions of my staff. Antoine, the wine steward, met my gaze as he brought the bottle. A slight eyebrow raise asked if I wanted to be introduced. I gave a tiny shake of my head. "Excellent choice," he said to my father, presenting the bottle with polished elegance. "We're celebrating my mother's birthday," Dad announced, clearly fishing for special treatment. "Congratulations," Antoine replied smoothly. "Palais d'Étoile is honored to serve this special occasion." "I'm surprised you managed to get a table," I said, feigning innocence. "I heard it's impossible." Thomas leaned in. "I have connections," he winked, so self-satisfied I fought the urge to roll my eyes. "A close friend of the manager." I bit my lip. That friend must be Daniel Harper, our frequent investor. Jane, finally sitting down, whispered, "Still cooking? Your dress smells a little like garlic sautéing." Uncle scoffed. "Selling food? Is that even a career? You should go back to studying construction management." Henry gave a wry smile. "Niche perfumes are getting wild these days. Or is that the scent of your signature dish?" Aunt forced a fake laugh. "It's fine, darling. Every profession has its scent, as long as you're happy. My knuckles went white from gripping the stem of my glass. A cold sweat ran down my spine. I remembered. I remembered the freezing kitchen floor in Portland. The smell of grease clinging to my skin after 18 hours straight. The peeling burn scars on my hands. I remembered Julian Moreau's look when he said, "You found your voice." I remembered my first customer who cried over the venison. The woman said, "I've never felt this way in my life." And now they were laughing at all of it. The mockery hit my deepest nerve. I took a deep breath. My voice was calm but firm. "If everyone thinks I'm so hard up, let me pay for dinner tonight." The whole table erupted in laughter. Jane covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling with derision. "Are you serious? On a cook's salary?" Uncle waved his hand dismissively. "Come on, everyone here is successful. No one is letting you pay." Henry smirked. "Relax, Eliza. I've got the bill covered." I gave a subtle smile, hiding the rage. They'd soon find out I didn't need anyone to cover me. I stayed silent, waiting for my moment. "So Eliza," Mom turned to me, her voice sweet but her eyes sharp. "Tell us what you've been doing these past few years. You're being so mysterious." I took a sip of the wine. It was exactly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, just how I trained my staff. My eyes flickered to Thomas. He was sitting opposite me, assessing the whole table like it was a complex business deal. Daniel Harper, Dad's old partner, sometimes booked Palais d'Étoiles for big deals. I made a mental note to ask him about Thomas later. Instead of talking, I pulled out my phone. The first photo, me at 24, sleeping on a kitchen couch. My hands were covered in burns, but I was smiling. Portland, 8 years ago. The second, me next to Julian Moreau. He's showing me how to properly season a sauce reduction. The third, Palais d'Étoiles opening day. I'm standing outside the entrance, eyes red and puffy. The last one, the Michelin guide page. They wrote about my venison. "Less talk, more action," I murmured. Jane sighed, like I'd just confessed to a regrettable habit. "Still stuck in that cooking phase? Surely you've moved on to something reputable by now?" Henry jumped in, a half smile playing on his lips. "Not everyone is cut out for the corporate track, right, sis?" His words sounded supportive, but they cut like a knife. Thomas leaned in, genuinely curious. "What exactly do you do? Prep cook? Event manager?" "A few roles," I answered vaguely, taking another sip of wine. "I wear many hats." "Well, we're just glad you can take care of yourself," Mom chirped. That familiar, fake sympathy in her voice, like I was barely surviving. "But our door is always open if things get too tough." Just then, Marie, my seasoned server, came over. She carried the amuse-bouche, compressed cucumber, goat cheese cream, topped with fresh thyme from the urban farm I selected. "A gift from the kitchen," she announced, setting a tiny dish in front of everyone. Marie's eyes met mine. A flash of pure loyalty, then back to professionalism. Jane squinted at the small bite, frowning. "That's it. I'm starving." "It's an amuse-bouche," I explained gently. "A small bite, meant to open your palate." "I know what an amuse-bouche is, Eliza," Jane snapped. I looked at the chèvre cream Jane left completely untouched. That bite took me 2 weeks to perfect, learning the technique from a Lyon chef who spent a month just fine-tuning the salt level. When I tasted it, I knew exactly what was missing. Not strawberry acidity, but a subtle hint of wild Corsican honey. And she dismissed it like trash. I watched them eat. Mom took a tiny bite, always conscious of calories. Dad swallowed his whole, barely tasting it. Henry and Emma tried to look appreciative. Thomas analyzed the flavor using words that had nothing to do with food. Jane left hers untouched, announcing, "I don't eat cheese cream." Even though the chèvre was handcrafted, taking 2 weeks to reach that perfect smooth texture. Grandma, sitting at the end of the table, gave me a soft smile. "This is exquisite, Eliza," she said, her voice warm. "You always had that special touch, even as a girl." When Marie cleared the plates, her eyes held a flicker of sadness because Jane's dish was untouched. I felt instantly protective, not of myself but of my team, the people who sweat over those tiny details. Palais d'Étoiles wasn't just a restaurant, it was a family, bonded by passion, not blood. The dinner continued with the entree, pan-seared venison, red wine reduction, black truffle, served on gold-rimmed china. The family praised the menu, but kept whispering about my failed path. The old feeling washed over me, the outsider, always having to justify herself. But unlike the Eliza of 8 years ago, I sat there with my secret power. I was ready to flip the whole damn table. So, tell me about Grandma's 80th birthday plans. I changed the subject as the next course arrived. Organic heirloom tomatoes, burrata, basil oil, a dish that took me months to perfect. Jane instantly brightened. We're booking Palais d'Étoile, of course. It's the fanciest place in town. Grandma's 80th has to be here to show our status. A party for 150 guests, although Mom wants to cut it to 100. The guest list is a nightmare. Mom cut in. The Harpers aren't speaking to the Wilsons after that charity fund dispute. We can't seat them in the same section. Dad nodded along. We'll all chip in to make it spectacular. Everyone contributes their share. I suppressed a laugh. Their social calculus always fascinated me. 150 guests is a lot, right? I asked, taking a bite of my tomato. Thomas leaned closer. It's networking, not just a party. Half the invites are relationship investments. Exactly, Dad agreed. Thomas understands social capital. A party this size opens doors. What about you, Eliza? Jane asked, her voice sharp. Any prospects yet? Or are you still busy with your food? I took a sip of my wine. The subtle red wine lingered on my tongue. I gave Jane a faint, knowing smile. Still busy with my food, sis, I said vaguely. Leaning into the snark, nothing huge, just doing what I love. Jane laughed it off like she won the round. Mom nodded, pity in her eyes. Only Grandma's eyes, soft at the end of the table, seemed to side with me. She was supporting my choice, even if I hadn't yet succeeded. Palais d'Étoile was my palace, but tonight, I kept the doors locked. My moment was coming, just not yet. The chandeliers glittered, the warm light hit the swirling red wine in my glass. The next course, foie gras terrine with premium fig jam, was served. My aunt cooed. This place is pure luxury. I watched Jane. She barely touched her food, just pushed the mashed potatoes around her plate, clearly bored. Still obsessed with the kitchen smell, Eliza? She sneered, raising an eyebrow. I'm focusing on my career, Jane, I shot back. Career? Henry repeated with a smirk. Hardly a worthy title. Mom quickly intervened. Her fake concern was thick. Eliza, sweetheart, you're 32. Shouldn't you be settling down? Mrs. Wilson's son is in banking, very secure. I don't want to settle that way, Mom, I said, but she kept pushing. Her voice twisted the knife. Your options shrink every year, especially given your situation. Before I could clap back, Marie came to clear the plates. The tension was so tight, I couldn't even enjoy the taste of my own creation. Was everything to your liking, madam? Marie politely asked Jane, seeing her plate full. The truffle was too aggressive, Jane snapped, not looking up. And the venison was tough. I had to bite back my anger. Those black truffles were hand-selected this morning, exclusively sourced from an Italian farm just for us. My deepest apologies, Marie replied professionally. I'll notify the chef immediately. The main course arrived, pan-seared venison with a deep red wine reduction and delicate black truffle slices, my signature autumn dish. My hands were clenched so tight under the table they hurt. Dad sawed off a chunk of meat, chewed it, swallowed. No expression. It's filling, he judged dryly. Henry didn't touch the meat. He held his wine up to the light. The vintage is rare, he said, faux intellectual. But it's fine for mass consumption. Thomas whispered to Jane. She glanced at my untouched plate and gave an arrogant shrug, a dismissal worse than any insult. Only Grandma carefully cut a small piece. She inhaled. I saw her eyes sparkle when she tasted it. Marie passed by. She caught Henry's snark and gave me a quick glance. I answered with a knowing smile. Marie turned down Michelin spots in Lyon just to work with me. Emma spoke up, trying to bring me into the conversation. Henry said you're in food, but you never actually specified your role. Before I could answer, Jane jumped in. You're a hostess somewhere, right, Eliza? Wasting that expensive MBA seating people and handing out menus? Actually, I tried to start, but Dad cut me off. It's not bad, Dad said, a condescending attempt at kindness. Everyone starts somewhere. But after 8 years, I think you should be further along. I am further along, I said, quietly, clearly. Further along where? Shift manager at Denny's? Jane scoffed, full of scorn. Jane, Henry warned, standing up for me for once. What? I'm just telling the truth, Jane shot back, unapologetic. She threw away a 6-figure degree for a ridiculous dream. There's a price for that. I took a slow sip of wine. The complex flavor was grounding. What about your job, Jane? Same company, Jane replied, her face suddenly tight. I'm on a temporary leave, working on a personal project. Henry quickly interjected. She was overworked. I told Jane she doesn't need to stay chained to the firm. She can switch to philanthropy, like Mom. I saw a spark of pure fury, or maybe deep disappointment, flash in Jane's eyes before she quickly masked it with calm agreement. Dessert was served, vanilla cream puffs with fresh raspberry jam, a signature dish praised by Culinary Magazine. Such small portions, Mom observed, looking at the delicately arranged pastry. How much money for just a few bites? It's about quality, Mom, I explained, patient, almost detached. The menu is designed for a diverse experience of flavor and texture. Restaurants used to give you a decent meal, Dad grumbled, dissatisfied. This new cuisine is just an excuse to charge more for less. My heart sank watching Henry stab his fork hard into the cream puff instead of gently scooping it, shattering the delicate shell I perfected early that morning. Jane leaned towards me, her voice icy. Hey, Eliza, you offered to pay, right? Seriously, how could you possibly think you can cover the bill at a place like Palais d'Etoile? All eyes turned to me. The air was suddenly heavy, suffocating. I said I would pay, I answered. My voice was steady, unshakable. Cut it out, Jane snickered. Pure disdain. That tiny cook's salary won't even cover one of Dad's bottles. Do you still smell like last week's garlic mash? Everyone chuckled, except Mom. She just looked down, so embarrassed she couldn't meet anyone's eye. I gripped the glass so hard my knuckles burned white. Every memory hit me at once. The cold, greasy kitchen sofa, the scars on my forearms, the face of the customer who cried over my venison. I earned this, but I didn't speak. I waited. My moment was perfectly timed. The fourth course arrived, pan-seared salmon with bergamot sauce and buttery mash. Marie ran the kitchen while I was out. It looked flawless. Jane, predictably, jumped back on the attack. Seriously, Eliza, where's the money coming from? Did you take out a payday loan to flex tonight? I said I'll handle it, I repeated, totally unfazed. Stop lying, Jane hissed. Her eyes were burning into mine. Henry's right. You're either bankrupting yourself to impress us, or you're holding back a massive secret. Henry shot her a glare. He was squirming. Henry then took a bite of his salmon. He instantly recoiled. This fish is raw, he announced loudly. I glanced over. It was perfect medium rare. Exactly how we served it. It's supposed to be cooked like that, I explained calmly. It keeps the moisture. Henry cut me off. Well, I like my food cooked. Done. Send it back. He snapped his fingers at the waiter. Marie arrived. Henry didn't even look up. This is raw. Cook it. I saw the instant offense flash in Marie's eyes. She's a pro. Absolutely, sir. My apologies, she said. She took the plate. Our eyes met. I gave her a minimal, almost invisible nod. She understood. Don't ruin the current dish. Send a fresh, overcooked one. Seriously, Eliza, Mom pressed the second Marie was gone. Where's the money coming from? The air was so thick you could chew it. My chest physically hurt. It felt like every childhood dinner, trapped, judged, cornered. But this time I had a secret weapon. I built this empire. I wanted to drop the bomb, right then. Watch their faces melt when they realized they were trashing my food in my restaurant. Before I could speak, the new plate was back. Overcooked, dry, lifeless. Much better, Henry declared after the first bite, completely missing the point. Dad flagged down the list again. Another bottle, he demanded. Make it expensive. He took the leather-bound book from Marie, studied it for show, and pointed at the highest-priced Tuscan Red, over $900. This one should work, he announced. I knew the wine. I personally selected it from a small vineyard in Italy. It was incredible, and totally wrong for the current menu. Could I suggest a better pairing? I offered. Dad waved his hand. I know my wine, Eliza. Marie shot me another look. I gave her a slight nod. Let it go. Not worth the energy. Dinner ended. Dessert arrived. The vanilla choux with fresh raspberry jam, my personal favorite. But the snide comments were relentless. Every dish was nitpicked. Everything I said was twisted into proof of my failure. When coffee arrived, I was emotionally drained. Carrying the weight of their contempt, watching them casually mock my life's work, was suffocating. That's when Henry set his coffee down. He stared right at me through the steam. Wait a minute, he said. His voice was dangerously low. Something is way off. You know too much about this place. The staff names, the wine temperature, the lighting design, that's not normal customer intel. Jane scoffed, eyes still glued to her phone. Who cares? She probably worked here years ago, knows the layout. But Henry wasn't buying it. He looked at me like a detective closing in. What are you holding back, Eliza? Don't tell me you read an article or know a guy. The blood rushed from my head. My heart hammered against my slids. I'd slipped up. Too many details. I needed an answer. Anything right now. Henry, I stammered, my mind blank. He leaned across the table. His voice was a forced whisper, heavy with pressure. What is the truth? What is your real connection to Palais d'Etoile? The table instantly froze. Every eye snapped between Henry and me. I held my breath, knowing the secret I kept for a lifetime was seconds away from exploding. And just when I thought I was done for, the moment I both dreaded and longed for arrived. The check. Marie brought the black leather folder containing the bill and skillfully placed it in the center of the table. Dad reached for it, a paternal reflex, but Henry stopped him. Let me handle it, Dad, Henry said, his voice slick, turning generosity into a display of dominance. My treat in celebration of Grandma. Dad offered a token protest, then relented. I watched Henry open the folder. The confident smile on his face instantly vanished, replaced by shock as he saw the total. Is something wrong? Dad asked, noticing the shift. No, Henry quickly lied. Just double-checking the math. I knew exactly what he was seeing. Dinner for 8, premium wine, specific requests, and that $900 Tuscan bottle, all adding up to a hefty sum. The bill, including the $900 Tuscany bottle secured through Thomas's connection, had to be over $4,000. Not overly expensive for Grandma's 79th birthday dinner at Palais d'Etoile, a dry run for the lavish 80th next year. Henry slowly pulled out his black card, deliberately flashing the silver logo for the 8 of us to see. Jane, wanting to rub salt in the wound, turned to me. Hey, Eliza, she said, her voice sickly sweet. You said you would pay, right? Seriously, how could you think you could cover this? All eyes turned to me. The old feeling washed back. Jane successful, me the failure. I said I would, I answered shortly. Really? Jane pressed, leaning forward. A cook's salary? Where did you get $4,000? Does your dress still smell like garlic? The table fell silent. The question was a slap in the face in the luxurious air. Jane, my mother mumbled, please don't. No, I want to know, Jane insisted. She offered to pay, but nobody believes her. Heat rushed from my chest to my face. 8 years and they still saw only the failed version of me. Henry jumped in, patronizing. Are you trying to prove something? Nobody expects you to pay, Eliza. I don't need anyone to worry about me, I said, my voice thick. So where did the money come from? Jane demanded. Paying for this dinner would cost a lifetime of a cook's salary. I opened my mouth to speak, but Henry frowned at the bill. Wait, this is wrong, he announced. The total is $4,012.37, but it says paid. Henry flagged Marie down. What is this bill? Marie approached, her eyes fleetingly asking for my permission. The table exchanged confused looks, wondering who had secretly settled the account. My uncle frowned. Who paid? Henry, was it you? Henry shook his head, baffled. Marie offered a soft, clear, and formal smile. The owner of the restaurant has already covered tonight's entire bill, and the owner is present here at the table. As if to punctuate the moment, the restaurant door swung open. Jonathan Wells, the famous food critic, walked in. His voice echoed across the quiet space. Chef Eliza, the venison with red wine reduction tonight was truly exceptional. Culinary Magazine will be nominating Palais d'Etoile for our top list this year. Silence descended upon the table as if time had stopped. 7 pairs of eyes fixed on me, from confusion to utter disbelief. Thank you, Mr. Wells, I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Please take your usual table. I will join you shortly. Jonathan gave a friendly nod and headed to the VIP section. I turned back to the table, meeting Grandma's gentle smile. She nodded subtly, as if she had known this all along. And then she spoke, loud enough for the entire table to hear. Thank you, Eliza. Thank you for keeping your promise to me, with the very asset I mortgaged years ago. The table froze for the second time. My mother stammered, What is going on? I took a deep breath. The moment I had both feared and longed for over 8 years had finally arrived. Welcome to Palais d'Etoile, I said, my voice calm and clear. My restaurant. The silence stretched, feeling like an eternity. My uncle, not Dad, was the first to regain composure. His face shifted from confusion to calculation. Your restaurant? He repeated, cautious. You work here? No, uncle, I corrected him. A strange calmness washed over me. I own Palais d'Étoile. I am the executive chef and the sole owner. No way, Jane shrieked, her voice thin with disbelief. This is the most prestigious restaurant in the city. How could you? She looked at me as if I had confessed to a crime. Did you con someone? Or did you use Grandma's money? Her accusing gaze darted towards Grandma. Is that why you always defend her? The tension was now razor sharp. I took a deep, steadying breath. No, Jane. Every initial dollar came from my own $2,000 and the secret dorm dinners I hosted. Later, it was from business profit and trusting investors. Grandma didn't give me money, she gave me faith. I paused, looking directly at her, my voice clear and deliberate. And if you need more concrete proof, last month's culinary magazine, last year's Michelin guide, 5 stars from Portland Monthly, all verifiable. Henry stared at me as if I were speaking an alien language. But, you said you were a cook. You were so vague about everything. Because I wanted to see how you would all treat me when you thought I was a failure, I explained, the words slow and distinct. And tonight you all showed me exactly that. My mother brought her hand up to her pearl necklace, a familiar gesture when she lost composure. Eliza, why didn't you tell us sooner about this? Success? She emphasized the word success, as if only now was my choice worthy of the title. I looked around the table, letting my gaze settle on each stunned face. Do you all really want to hear the story? Without waiting for an answer, I began. My voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of 8 years. 8 years ago, when I walked out the door, I had $2,000 in my pocket and a small suitcase. I went to Portland, slept on a friend's old sofa, and worked 18-hour shifts. Starting prep at 5 a.m., running the main kitchen line until 10 p.m., and wrestling with dough on weekends. I only slept 4 hours a night, and my hands were never free of burns and cuts. But I learned non-stop from books, videos, and Julianne Moreau's unforgiving real-world kitchen. I took a sip of water, seeing Jane's head bowed and Henry frozen like a statue. Julian hired me into his Boston kitchen after tasting my pan-seared venison, the dish inspired by the soup I used to make for Grandma. 18 months later, I was his sous chef. Then 3 years ago, Daniel Harper, after tasting my food at an event, proposed a partnership. Palais d'Étoile was born, with me as the executive chef and co-owner. I used all the initial profits to buy out shares, and after a large investment, I became the sole owner. I gestured to the lavish space around us. From this chandelier, the porcelain plates, to every page of the menu, me, my blood, sweat, and my dream. Dad mumbled, his voice instantly turning transactional. A place like this must have cost a fortune. Enough to build a palace, I replied, not giving a specific number. 6 months after opening, Palais d'Étoile became profitable, and now I own it entirely. Jane, her voice much softer. So that's why you offered to pay for Grandma's 79th birthday dinner. Not exactly, I corrected, turning to Emma. Emma chose Palais d'Étoile, right? Emma blushed, nodding slightly. Daniel Harper said it was the most luxurious restaurant in the city. I had no idea it was yours. Of course not, I said. I deliberately kept my identity hidden. I wanted to see how you all would treat me when you thought I was still a failure. Mom trembled, her voice catching. Why would you do that? We could have been so proud of you. I let out a small, sharp laugh. Proud? When the family called my passion servant's work? When you cut contact because I chose culinary school? When you constantly mocked me for the smell of sautéed garlic? You only respect me now that you see Palais d'Étoile, now that you see the Michelin Guide article, not because of the passion itself. Dad cleared his throat, attempting justification. We were just concerned about your future. If we had known you had such a business mind. That is precisely the problem, I interrupted, my voice thick with emotion. Why do I have to achieve a success of this magnitude to be worthy of respect? When I lived authentically, you called it failure. Jane stammered, trying to pivot. Do you hire staff? I'm also curious about the industry. You can start by washing glasses, just like I did, I replied, blunt and direct. I don't offer preferential treatment to anyone, including family. My uncle quickly changed his tune, a calculating glint in his eye. You should consider opening a branch. I could provide investment capital. Thank you, uncle. I cut him off. Finality in my tone. But I have already built my own palace, piece by piece. Just then, Marie approached. The words Sous Chef Marie Dubois were clearly embroidered on her uniform. Chef Eliza, the culinary magazine team has arrived. They want to confirm the interview schedule. And the publisher called about the cover design for your cookbook. Thank you, Marie, I said. Tell them I'll be right out. Jane whispered, surprised. A cookbook? It will be released this autumn, featuring 100 recipes, I confirmed. Then turned to Grandma, my voice warming. Grandma, I still keep the cookbook you gave me when I was 12 in my office at Palais d'Etoile. Today's venison dish, my journey began with that very book. Grandma squeezed my hand, her eyes shining. I always believed in you, Eliza. I only regret not being able to protect you from the old prejudices back then. I don't need protection anymore, Grandma. I squeezed her hand gently. I've built a very strong kitchen for myself. Henry asked quietly with a touch of diffidence, Do you take interns? Start by washing dishes, I repeated, but my tone was gentler. If you are truly committed, I will train you. And to be absolutely clear, I continued, my voice echoing in the still space, if Grandma's 80th birthday party is held at Palais d'Etoile as you all discussed, I will cover the entire cost, just as I did today. Uncle stammered. Free? Completely free? Exactly, I affirmed. I want Grandma to have a truly special day, and I have the ability to do that without anyone needing to chip in. Henry sputtered. But 150 guests. Are you serious? Very serious, I replied, a slight smile touching my lips. Palais d'Etoile is my second family, a place where people sweat and share their passion with me. I look forward to seeing you all next year. I stood up, nodding to Grandma one last time, then turned and headed toward the kitchen, where Marie was still waiting. The kitchen door closed softly behind me, closing a chapter of life that was tempestuous yet resolute. The scent of bergamot or black truffle does not define your worth. They are merely the signature of a passionate heart. What makes you small is not the kitchen you stand in, but how others treat you when they think you are insignificant. If you were ever doubted, ever looked down upon, just walk away and build your own palace, just like I did. I built Palais d'Etoile myself, I stated, my voice firm and clear, not through connections, money, or any family backing. Uncle, who had been silent all evening, suddenly leaned forward excitedly. The cookbook is coming out, surely a large advance? He gestured around the lavish space. This restaurant must be pulling in quite a bit. Are you thinking of expanding? A chain, perhaps? I have several contacts in the culinary investment sector, highly worthwhile meetings. I laughed at the brazen pivot from outright contempt to calculating flattery. I'm perfectly fine with my current advisory team. Thank you, Uncle. Jane, her voice hardening, cut in. So all evening, you let us sit here criticizing the food, the wine, the small portions, knowing full well this is your restaurant? I wanted to see how you would all treat me when you thought I was a failure, I explained, my eyes not leaving hers. Now I know. Manipulation? More so than asking where I got the money to eat here, than implying I was in debt or dependent on someone, Jane. You weren't worried about me. You just enjoyed feeling superior. The restaurant was gradually emptying, the sounds of cutlery fading as the evening drew to a close. Marie approached, holding a special bottle of cognac. The reserve bottle for the investor meeting, Chef Eliza, she whispered. The sous chef says the kitchen is ready whenever you need it. Thank you, Marie, I replied. Tell everyone I'll be 10 minutes. As Marie left, I turned back to look at my family. Their eyes showed clear embarrassment and confusion. I have work to do, I said, standing up. Thank you all for coming to Palais d'Etoile. Eliza, wait, Mom quickly called. Don't rush off. We should celebrate your success. Brunch at home this weekend, okay? The whole family can talk again. I looked at Mom. I'll think about it, I said. But right now I have investors waiting and a kitchen that needs managing. Henry stood up. Eliza, he called, his voice low. What you've built here is truly remarkable. I apologize for not supporting you sooner. Mom rushed after me. Eliza, you can't just drop a bomb like that and walk away. We need to talk. I glanced toward the private dining room. I have a meeting, Mom. The family hasn't been your priority for the past 8 years. My job cannot be postponed simply because you now find my career noteworthy. Dad proposed. Shall we continue this tomorrow? Dinner at home? There's a lot to discuss, including helping you with expansion. Uncle quickly added. My company specializes in investment. If you need capital or contacts, I can handle everything. I don't need help, I interrupted, my voice sharp. I didn't build Palais d'Etoile to be accepted by everyone. I built it because I love it, and I'm good at it. Success now doesn't make my passion more valuable than it was 8 years ago. Mom stepped back, her voice softening. No one is saying that, darling. We are just proud. Proud, I gently cut in. Or relieved that I finally didn't embarrass you in front of your friends? She froze, a flicker of pain crossing her eyes. That's not fair, Eliza, Dad interjected. We always wanted what was best for you. No, I shook my head, my voice resolute. You wanted me to follow your vision of what was best. That is the difference. Just then, Marie appeared beside me, her presence a solid anchor. Chef Eliza, the investment team asked if you could join them any sooner, she said quietly. 5 minutes, I replied, then turned back to my family one last time. Grandma stepped forward, her hand trembling as she took mine. Eliza, you don't need to prove anything anymore. But I hope that our family can understand each other better. I looked at her, the image of the cookbook she gave me at 12, still carefully kept in my Palais d'Etoile office, flooding my mind. I squeezed her hand, a gentle warmth filling me. I will come to the brunch, for you, Grandma, I whispered. But I will bring my Palais d'Etoile team, the family I chose. If everyone truly wants to understand me, start by respecting my passion, not just the successes I've achieved. I turned, walking toward the kitchen, where the chandelier still shone brightly and the harp music lingered. Palais d'Etoile was living proof. The scent of bergamot or black truffle does not define me. The fire of passion I carry in my heart does. An hour later, Daniel Harper knocked on the kitchen door. Your father wants to speak with you. He stood at the threshold, his posture as straight as ever, but his eyes were different. You have accomplished the impossible, he said, his voice husky. The family, they won't bother you anymore. I nodded. Thank you, Dad. He paused before turning away. Just one question. Does this work? Does it make you happy? I looked around the kitchen, where Marie was laughing with the crew, where the aroma of freshly baked pastries still wafted. Yes, I answered, my voice full of emotion. Very happy, Dad. He nodded, looking at me for the first time with the gaze one reserves for a true adult. That is enough. Hold on to it, my daughter. I hugged Dad, a brief embrace containing a sky full of unsaid emotion. But in my mind, one question still echoed. Forgiving is easy, but forgetting is not. And perhaps I don't want to forget, because it was those scars and that pain that forged the person standing here today. When Marie nodded and left after receiving her instructions, I turned back to the family one final time. I have to go. Jane stepped forward, the usual sharpness gone from her voice. I owe you an apology. What I said tonight was truly unkind. They were honest, I countered, and that is the brightest spot of the evening. It allowed me to see clearly what everyone truly thought of me when they assumed I was struggling. That's not fair, Henry interjected. People judge based on the information they have. We didn't know. You didn't know I was successful, I corrected. But you also never knew or cared whether I was pursuing my passion. That alone should have been enough for the family to show me basic respect. A heavy silence descended. You are right, Dad suddenly spoke, startling me. He rarely admitted he was wrong. We should have supported your passion, regardless of the outcome. Now, how do we move forward? Mom asked, her voice revealing a rare uncertainty. I took a deep breath, weighing my words. They were still family, after all. I didn't want to cut ties completely, just establish a safe distance to continue building my life without judgment. I'm not sure yet, I answered frankly. But tonight made one thing clear. If we want a new relationship, it must be built on a new foundation. I am no longer the failed daughter begging for redemption. I am the executive chef and owner of Palais d'Etoile, and I deserve to be respected like any other professional. Of course, Dad immediately agreed. And that means, I continued, my voice clear, no more critiques of my choices, no unsolicited career advice, and absolutely no using my restaurant as a networking tool. I glanced at Uncle, causing him to look down awkwardly. About Jane's engagement party, Mom hesitated. What about it? I asked. Jane spoke up, her voice much softer now. I want you to come, as my sister, not as the image we used to impose on you. I looked at Jane, trying to move past years of rivalry and sarcasm. After all, we had once shared childhood secrets, comforted each other through early heartbreaks, and had jokes only the two of us understood. "I'll come," I promised, and after a pause for thought, I added, "And if you want, I can help organize a small engagement dinner for the bridal party at Palais d'Étoile as a gift. The pan-seared venison will be featured, still inspired by the cookbook Grandma gave me when I was 12. Jane's eyes widened. "Would you really do that? After everything that happened?" "You're still my sister," I said simply. "But let's be clear, this isn't to win anyone over. This is something I'm proud of, and I want to execute it my own way." I would be very honored," Jane said softly, and the first sincere smile of the entire evening briefly appeared on her face. "Now I really must go," I said, pointing toward the private dining room. "Of course," Dad nodded. "Your work is the priority." "Not always," I corrected him, smiling lightly. "But tonight, it is." As they began to gather their things to leave, I added, "I'm free for brunch Sunday, but not at your club. There's a great little place in the East Village everyone should try." "We'll be there," Mom promised, her eyes relieved at this small opportunity. I stood watching them leave Palais d'Étoile, knowing their perception of me had changed forever. When the door closed, I let out a long breath, feeling a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Marie came over, said nothing, but simply handed me a glass of cold water. I took it, feeling the chill seep through the glass and into my palm. "Is everything all right, Chef Eliza?" "Tired," I sighed, opening my eyes and looking at her, "but worth it." Marie nodded, an understanding that needed no words. "My mother," she began, her voice soft, "still tells the neighbors that I work with food." A faint smile touched my lips. "We all have our own battles, don't we?" "Yes," Marie replied, "but at least, we fight them in our own kitchen." I took a sip of water, set the glass down, and stretched. "Let's go. I'm thinking salmon with lemon dill sauce, reminiscent of Portland. Let's discuss the spring menu." As I walked back into the kitchen, my sanctuary, my accomplishment, and my true home, I suddenly realized the most important thing that happened tonight. The smell of black truffle, red wine sauce, and even the scent of bergamot perfume from Jane's dress still lingered in the air. A strange mix of two worlds. But now I smelled them with a new awareness. The most important thing wasn't showing my family what I had built. It was my own deep understanding that I created this success with my own hands and heart, whether they recognized it or not. The scent of bergamot or black truffle did not diminish me. They were the marks of passion, the bricks of the palace I built myself, and the value of that was worth more than any praise they could offer. A fortnight passed in a whirlwind. Planning the spring menu, meeting with the publisher about the cookbook design, and initial discussions about the second branch kept me busy, but the quiet moments pulled me back to the family dinner. Sunday brunch went better than expected. I took the whole family to Bistro Lumiere, a small spot opened by a former colleague from my days studying patisserie in Portland. Mom and Dad were initially awkward with the rustic wooden tables and scribbled murals, but the food, simple yet refined, drew praises. "I never thought a savory crepe could be this good," Dad confessed, wiping up the last of the mushroom cream sauce with homemade sourdough bread. A small step, not a massive change, but a promising start. Now, sitting at my usual table in Palais d'Étoile after closing hours, I watched the team finish their tasks. Marie counted the till, humming a tune. Julienne and Pierre discussed wine selections for tomorrow's private party. John had left after finalizing the spring menu. My phone buzzed, a text from Jane. "Engagement planning is a nightmare. Decoration costs skyrocketed. Are you free for tea sometime? I need blunt, unfiltered advice." I smiled at the unexpected invitation. Another small step. I texted back, setting a time and location. The relationship with my family was slowly transforming, not into the unconditional embrace I once dreamed of, but into something more valuable: respect between adults who follow their own paths. Mom called 5 times in 2 weeks, her tone less formal, genuinely curious about my work. Dad sent an article about female chefs breaking stereotypes, his subtle way of trying to understand my world. Henry texted, asking if he could bring his kids to see the kitchen. "I want them to know they have many options, that success doesn't have to look the same," he shared. These were fragile beginnings, nothing like a Hollywood movie, but I realized healing comes from small actions, from gradually erasing old prejudices. The biggest change was not how my family saw me, but that I stopped evaluating myself through their lens. The validation I once craved was no longer necessary. I had proven my worth, not to them, but to myself. This realization spread throughout my life. I launched a training program for young chefs from challenging backgrounds, giving them the opportunity I once had to fight for. Every Tuesday morning, the Palais d'Étoile kitchen became a classroom for 8 passionate apprentices, reminding me of my younger self, driven, only needing one person to believe. One apprentice, Mai, was so talented I offered her an internship. Seeing Mai grow more confident with every new dish brought a different, deeper joy than any professional award. Marie's voice cut through my thoughts. "We're all set, Chef Eliza. Do you need anything before we leave?" "No. Thank you," I smiled. "You all did a wonderful job tonight." As the team said goodbye, I sat back down, opening my notebook to a blank page. I struggled to find the words for the cookbook's introduction, wanting to capture the entire journey. In the quiet solitude of Palais d'Étoile, I wrote, "Cuisine is my most truthful language. When words fail, I tell stories through flavor. When the path is murky, I let the kitchen lead the way." 8 years ago, I came to Portland with $2,000 and a culinary dream, carrying the cookbook Grandma gave me at age 12. The pan-seared venison, inspired by the time I made soup for her, is now the soul of Palais d'Étoile, which I built myself without a cent from my family. The scent of bergamot and black truffle in these dishes are the signature of passion, not a measure of status. The recipes in this book are not just formulas, they are chapters of a life lived for authenticity, not for applause. The fork in the road between expectation and passion had placed me in a difficult situation. By choosing passion, I paid a high price. Being alienated by my family, facing endless doubts from my closest relatives. But ultimately, that choice brought me a spiritual feast richer than anything I had ever dreamed of. It wasn't just professional success or material wealth, but the journey to discover a truth. A person's true worth does not lie in external recognition, but in the courage to listen to the small yet persistent inner voice, even when it is just a whisper amidst the shouts of doubt. I put my pen down, the words on the final manuscript page flowing naturally, just like the path I had traveled. Tomorrow, new challenges awaited, negotiating with difficult suppliers, helping Jane plan her engagement party, and finalizing the introduction to the upcoming cookbook. But in this quiet night, within the familiar space of Palais d'Étoile, I felt a deep, rare peace. My journey was never easy. There were still nights of exhaustion where I fell asleep on the office sofa, the warmth and smell of truffle oil from the kitchen lingering on my clothes. The scars from burns, the hurried cuts on my hands were still clearly visible, and there were countless moments of self-doubt, making me wonder if I was choosing the wrong path. But I persisted, not to prove anything to anyone, but simply because I couldn't live any other life. By choosing authenticity over chasing praise from others, I found something more precious than success or family recognition. I found myself, an Eliza who bravely built Palais d'Étoile from the initial $2,000 and a pure dream, inspired by the simple cookbook Grandma gave me at age 12. Eliza's journey is living proof. A person's true worth is never determined by the eyes of others, but lies in the courage to listen to and pursue the inner calling, even when it is just a faint whisper amidst the shouts of doubt. From $2,000 and a pure dream, she built Palais d'Étoile. But more than a magnificent restaurant, the greatest thing she built was her new self, resilient, autonomous, and full of self-worth. If this story has touched your heart, stirred your thoughts, or sparked empathy, please hit subscribe now, because this is not just a gesture of support. This will be a spiritual home you can always return to find strength when you feel small, empathy when you feel lost, and a gentle reminder that you are never alone on your own journey. Each time you return, we hope to give you the courage to continue on your own distinct path, no matter how different or challenging it may be. Share your perspective. Do you support forgiveness and openness for reconciliation, or do you believe clear boundaries are necessary to protect your peace? Let us know your choice and a brief reason below.